and see what happens next. Setting up your meeting. I've got no idea what's going on.
Yeah, sounds like there's a spaceship in the background or something.
Oh yeah, it's
whirring noise.
Yeah, that'll be the Lyrans trying to come in and influence me. It's my fan on my computer. When it gets warm, it kicks in, so that's happening as well. But we'll get there.
Yeah.
I think it's live. It looks like it's live on Facebook now. So, hello everybody. Just bear with me while I sort myself out, which may take a lifetime or two. So let me just do this. Now, in order to find out whether anybody can see us, what I'll do is I'll go to this bit here. Nice. Thanks very much for coming, by the way, and it's nice to see you.
It's my pleasure.
I've got no idea what we're going to talk about, but that will develop as we go along. So
absolutely.
Let's see now.
Oh yeah, it looks like stops thumping out of my chest.
Oh, you'll be all right in a minute. I'll tell some jokes or rude stories or something like that. That'll dissipate. So it looks like we're okay. So I'm going to share this now. So it's on my timeline. But if I share this to a group. Let's see who I like today. We'll do Solargy because I've heard of those before.
Yeah, some good people there.
Yeah, there are. So that's Solargy. And if anybody else is watching, please feel free to share it as well. There we are. So let me put this on here. Oh. Peter Delaney, my brother's watching. He might learn something from this. And Alison Glenn are watching. Okay. So forgive me for that. I think that we're going now. I tend not to look at the comments if I can while we're talking because it distracts me really and takes away from, for me anyway, the conscious conversation that we're having. So
yeah, I agree.
So Leilani, thank you. It's lovely to meet you. We've never spoken before. But I know that we share similar interests in lots of things. And this is almost like your coming out party, isn't it, really?
Well, as Leilani it is, yes. Because Leilani's not actually the name I was born with. So, yeah, when I was last year and previously when I was using my birth name, I went on Solargy probably a handful of times.
Oh, right.
But yeah, this is my coming out as Leilani.
Right. And do you feel any different now that the name's changed?
Yeah, I do. It's funny. But yeah, so Leilani was given to me in meditation, in process, and is very much my soul name. And so some of the insecurities and self-conscious aspects that I felt as my birth name have not carried over to Leilani. Right. So it's been very beneficial in that respect.
Marvelous. I mean, I know that we share some interests and things, in transpersonal consciousness and psychology and things like that. I also read your sort of little thing that you put up, and you've trained as something called a death doula as well. I found that very, very interesting. What's that about then?
So a death doula is like a support person and companion who will walk beside you on your journey departing from this life. So yeah, I studied that a long time ago. There was a couple of I call them initiations that led me down that path. So yeah, I'm at the point now where I'm trying to bring all of that into being. So I've laid all of my foundations, and now it's time for me to walk through the portal and to be all the things that I've trained to do.
Right. And how do you know? Because I mean, honestly, people say to me, you seem to know such a lot, and I don't feel like that about myself, because most of the time I'm sort of scrabbling around, wondering what the hell's going on, to be honest with you, and I might have all these qualifications and things, and I have a sort of deep sense of imposter syndrome, me, you know, because I think I'm just getting away with it all the time. I'm being honest now, you know, and people say to me, but, you know, you're so wise. And I think you've got no idea what, you know, what's going on in my head, you know. So how do you know? How do you feel when you know it's time to take action and that it's the right action to take?
Well, that's really interesting you say that, because I've always felt like an imposter in my life. And I guess for me, the knowing was I'd let it go. So I did this training and stuff for about 4 years ago, and I let it go, and I got on with my life, and I looked after my family, and it's come back. So when it comes back, you've got to start taking notice. And then a couple of people have come forward to support me. And sometimes it just takes 1 or 2 people to say, yeah, keep going, you're on the right path. And for me, that's been enough to help me to go that final push forwards. It's like, I was thinking about it this morning, and I came up with the, you know, you come up to, say you're running and you come up across a fence, and you try to get over that fence, and you try to get over it, but it's just too high, you just can't do it. And you don't give up, you just keep trying to get over the fence, and then someone comes along and says, here, let me give you a leg up. And then you can take off, you can do the rest, but you just need that leg up. So sometimes that's the only sign you need.
No, I agree entirely. And I think my professional work is that I'm a sort of facilitator. I used to be more didactic and tell people. I used to be more, this is the way that it is. I'm an authority figure. You need to listen to what I'm telling you. Don't think for yourself, because I know and you don't, you know, and that's that creeps back in a lot. But, you know, I'm onto it now. I was never onto it before, because I really, really felt that I'd learned a lot, and that everybody else should know what I'd learned in the way that I'd learned it, and there was no other way that everybody should behave, you know. And whether you want to call that narcissism or authoritarianism or what, I don't know about labels, you know. But I've realized now that my job is to facilitate other people's journeys, if you like. And I could be wrong, and I'm always open to criticism now. I don't care about being constructively criticized at all now. But I see my job as facilitating other people's journeys who are in trouble to reconnect with their source of essential information that's within them, that resides within them. And I call that soul consciousness now, or transpersonal, whatever you want to call it. And facilitation through sharing my experience, my strength and my hope, you know, and that's all really. Because when people ask me, what shall I do next? I'll say, don't be asking me. Go deep and ask yourself, you know, because that's what somebody did to me. I mean, coming up to 30 years ago, I sat with somebody who took me through a particular program of recovery, they call it. It was a 12-step program of recovery. And in that process, something changed in me, where they handed me back to me, you know, and I'm just saying this as it's coming out, because I didn't realize that what I needed to know was deep within me, you know, and the songs about this all the time, you know, and Todd would say it, and I would say it, Shakespeare, to thine own self be true, you know. I didn't know what that meant, because I always thought I was an authentic person, but I see now couldn't have been further from the truth, you know, because my authenticity, so-called, was based upon external information that had been fed to me and that I'd taken on board and digested, and I'd constructed this ego self, if you like, out of other people's opinions on how I should live my life. Anyway, I know this sounds like it's all about me, but I realized that authenticity is completely different than what I thought it was.
Yeah. And you know, very much my journey has been, I guess my goal has been to achieve authenticity. Like yourself, like you said, you always felt like an imposter. And I've very much felt the same. And I lived my life wanting to please and appease other people. And it's only, you know, I guess I've intensively been on this journey for 5 years, and it's only probably it's so hard to put timeframes on things. Only in the very recent past that I've discovered my inner strength and my authenticity. There's always been little hints that it's there, and other people have been able to see it in me, but I couldn't see it in myself. So yeah, I really, really resonate with the journey to authenticity. I was going somewhere else and I've just completely forgotten where I was going.
That's all right. Seems to be the way it goes. See, if I'm, you know, I want to be honest, and I want to say, look, you might think I'm this, but this is what I feel that I am, right?
Exactly.
I have a head part of me that's full of resentments. It's full of criticism. It's full of standards on how other people should behave. But I've got a heart that when it's open and flowing, I just love everybody and everything. I understand them. When I say love, it's not that huggy, hoochie coochie. Although that could be part of it, depending on who I'm with, you know, but it's that I understand you, right? And I feel that you and I are connected, right, completely at some level. So therefore we're the same. However, when we come back into our head department, you're nothing like me. You've got no idea how I think. I think what you're saying is bollocks. Right. And I'm not having it, you know, and whether enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, ascension or whatever, whether it's about being aware of the head chatter, right? But I'm definitely not free of it. It's there all the time, nibbling away at the back of my head. You know, it's always feeding information in all the time, but I'm onto it.
I used to call that my critic.
Yeah.
Like I had a very overactive critic, and everything I thought, said, did was always counteracted by my critic. And really, I guess taming the critic has been my greatest achievement, because that critic drove me to some pretty severe doubts and some pretty dark times. And yeah, like you, I've overcome addiction. And that was a really rough journey. I didn't go down the path of 12 steps or any support programs. I did it by myself. And so I found as I was becoming clean and sober, everyone I thought was close to me started drifting. I found that I couldn't be the person that people wanted me to be anymore. And so those relationships all started disintegrating. And then I've had to rediscover my own boundaries and rediscover who I am internally, to be able to come back out and be in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I was brought up with a very, very strict code, Roman Catholicism, and very strict code on how I should behave. And I know that the intentions of the people around me who were feeding me with this information, they were good intentioned people, generally speaking. They didn't understand about conditioning and programming and control, because they were set a standard curriculum and a standard education in religious education as well, that they thought was correct. Right. And I never fitted in because it didn't feel correct to me at a deeper level, you know, and I understand now that I'd lived my life trying my best to live by some sort of external moral code, you know, but really authenticity is to find your own internal moral code. And if you want to call that my soul's purpose or whatever, that's what I try to live by now. And my head will say, because I've sort of mastered that now, and I tell it where to go most of the time, get behind me, Satan, and all that sort of stuff. When I'm sitting with it, I go now and I act upon how I deeply feel from the depths of my being, you know, and I don't question it now. And some people call that a sort of non-dual awareness, really, you know, it's just like how can I explain it? It's just like, it's just a feeling of correctness. You know, take this action now, Joe. And my head will say, well, why am I doing that? And I'll say, shut your face, you, right? Just get behind. It feels like it's the correct thing. It's guiding me from the depths. And I found, Leilani, that over the years, go in with this. It's not a gut feeling. I think gut feelings can be misinterpreted as well, because to me, most gut feelings are based upon defensiveness, I think, you know. But this feeling is different. It comes from a different place. It's just above me gut, not quite at the level of my heart. And it seems to be at a place in between those two things, you know. And that's what I go with. And generally speaking, as far as I'm judging it, it's generally been very successful over the years. I don't know whether that makes sense at all.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. And I've been spending the past few days really deeply investigating nature versus nurture. And I feel I've been seeking for my nature the majority of my life, but my excuse me, my default has been my nurture, and my nurture program was very strong, but it was working in opposition to my nature. And so really it's for me, it's been finding my strength to put aside the nurture and really embrace and fully bring out my nature. And part of nature is your authenticity. And when you're authentic and you're in your true nature, I think it shines through. And you know, that's where we're all connecting so much these days, is we are resonant in our nature. Yeah, and we've managed to, you know, forego a lot of our beliefs and programming, and come to that place within of deep resonance of that heart sense.
No, I agree totally. It's a deep felt sense in me of non-obstruction. It just flows, you know, like I'm flowing now. I'm not trying to use my head to think of clever things to say or anything like this. I'm just like going with it and see what comes out. In fact, sometimes when I play these things back, right, I think, who was that speaking? Because, you know, the old Joe would be full of words, and I think, oh, I'll get that word in there and that'll impress them and stuff like that, you know. But now I couldn't give a shit really, you know, and I just allow it to come out. Right. And sometimes it's a lesson to me when I play it back and see what I've been saying, you know. It's like it's like teaching on the run, you know. I used to when they had chalkboards, you know, blackboards they used to call them, but I don't know whether we can call them that these days.
Yeah.
But they used to have a chalkboard, you know, and I'd be thinking, oh my God, I don't really know what I'm talking about. And it was almost as if the answer came out of the chalk. I thought, oh, thank God for that. You know, and at the end of the lesson, I'd go and get pissed thinking, oh God, I got away with that, you know, preparing myself for the next adventure of sort of, you know, infidelity and stuff like this. So I know that we share, well, I think we do. I might have this wrong, but, you know, Ken Wilber's work and integral life practice, is that something that you've looked into at all? Or?
Yeah, it is. It is. When I was very early in my journey, prior to even going down the transpersonal counselling route, I started investigating consciousness and came upon Ken Wilber. And at that point in time, it was very much over my head. But I knew what I was reading was an integral part of me. And so on one level, I was understanding everything that was being said. But then on my human level, I'm just going, oh my gosh, so many words and so many concepts and things. It's just absolute sensory overload. And then every once in a while, I come back and revisit Ken Wilber and watch some of his videos and read some of his books and things. And I just, it always brings me back to my beginning.
No, I agree. When I first read it, I thought, I'll never get my head around this. You know, some of these words I've never heard of before, you know, but over the years, they've sort of sunk in and they make a lot of sense. Because I think it can either be complicated or complex. I think complexity and complication are different things to me now. You know,
yeah.
I think that complexity means that systems are interrelated. And if working in good health, they're working harmoniously with one another. And I think what actually happens is the more simple you live your life, the more that these complex systems are in coherence and in alignment with one another. And that's why I've come in my understanding now. I use a 4-quadrant model where I talk about physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual as well. And basically, I can see that my life before this was very 3D, in that I didn't even consider this spirituality of this inner self, right? And that's where I spend most of my time now, in this deeper spiritual component. And I just feel like I'm on the initial, I always feel like I'm starting over every single day, learning something different, you know, and I'm all right with that now, because, you know, I realize, you know, it's that thing, to use a cliche, I know that I don't know, you know, because to me, I'm only ever scratching the surface. And when some other inspiration or intuitive idea comes in, I go, oh my God, isn't that brilliant the way it works? I think that the human is the hero. And I think that we're only just touching the full potential of what it is to be completely and fully human now, you know. And I think if we get those 4 quadrants working in harmony with one another, guided by the spiritual component, then I think that's the way forward. And to me, how do you get in touch with spirituality? You stop, you just sit, and you just sink in, tap on your heart and say, give us an effing clue, will you? And then wait for the answer to come up.
And that's where 2020 has been the greatest gift. Because so many people have had that opportunity to stop, and if they're wise, to tune into themselves and go, okay, things are going a little bit crazy out there, but I know if I turn inside, I can come into alignment, and I can find peace, and I can find congruency. So yeah, I think it's been the greatest gift, and I think many people see it in the same light.
Yeah, I think where I came to is, when people used to say to me something, I'd say, I know, you know. I was like a knowledgeable idiot looking back. I can see that, you know. And in that I know, I was always in a sense of, oh God, don't ask me anything, contest me, right? Because I don't know, you know. So I was in this, I know a lot. And this was the thing, look how many qualifications I've got, you know. But really it was, but just don't push it too far, because I don't really know what I'm talking about, you know. And I have a sense of today that I sort of know nothing, and yet there's a part of me that knows everything at the same time, you know. And that's, I'm sure-footed now in my belief, and I don't believe in beliefs, in my belief that the answer will come when it's required and when it's needed. It will come in the nick of time, you know.
And that's the beauty of living in the present moment, living in the now, is you just trust that whatever information you've taken in from whatever source throughout your life and throughout time and history and previous lives and whatever is going to be there when you need it in the present moment. And like, don't ask me what books I've read, don't ask me what movies I've seen or what concepts I believe in, because I can't tell you. All I know is that I'm here right now, and whatever needs to come is going to come through, because you integrate the information that you need into your being, and whatever doesn't need to be integrated, whatever's not yours to hold on to, will go. And so, yeah, I guess faith and trust.
Yeah.
Are 2 really key words for me in this present moment.
Yeah, and that's interesting you say that, because I used to think faith and trust were the same thing, you know, in something deeper or higher. I feel that my higher power is a deeper power, really. It's a deeper sense of something. And I think somebody explained to me the difference between faith and trust is, there was a bloke called Blondin who was a tightrope walker. And, you know, there was a tightrope across the Niagara Falls, and he used to take a wheelbarrow on it and walk across the Niagara Falls. Now, faith was having the belief that he could do it, but trust was getting in the wheelbarrow with him. You know, and that's the difference to me, is one's a sort of, you know, there's belief, and then faith to me is a belief, a deeper sense of belief. It's almost like not belief. But trust is totally abandoning yourself to being guided and looked after by this deeper you know. the I am presence or now or whatever you want to call it, you know. And I think surrender and acceptance are the key words for me now. Surrender to knowing that I don't know everything, but I do know some things, because the ego part of me, you know, it's an important part of me. And I don't know whether you've read any stuff by Susan Cook Greuter at all, whether that means anything to you. But she's
No.
got the different levels of ego developments, because what she feels is it's the shadow, which is the misdirected ego, that's the problem, because we all need this normal, healthy, functioning ego. And to me, and I could be wrong, it's just the way I explain things, is to me the ego is the body mind, the human body mind complex through which the soul experiences its own growth, you know. So we need this body mind in order to be able to feel. The soul needs the feedback from the body mind in order for itself to grow on its own journey, you know. So what I'm saying is she explains very, very clearly the different stages, you know. I like the phrases, we become sages in stages, you know. That's what Ken Wilber stuff is, that we can know stuff, but until you've actually experienced it and touched it and felt it, it doesn't become wisdom. And to me, that's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Is wisdom, you've felt it and reflected upon it and grown in understanding about it. I don't know whether that makes, you can sort of resonate with that.
Yeah, I can. And the key word there was experiential. You know, it's your experience, and that was one of the things that drew me to the transpersonal counselling, was it was very experiential, and the college where I studied it was they really embraced the experiential nature of the course. And I didn't know at the time when I was doing it that I was learning all of these for the experiences that I would be having over the next few years. I went in there blind. I had no idea what it was about. And so, you know, a lot of the time during the course, I was in overwhelm, you know, keeping up a great front, no one would know, but yeah, I was in overwhelm. And as the years have gone by since, it's sort of like, oh, okay, that's what I did this for. And so I could understand and experience my own journey with a level of comfort and confidence that I might not have had otherwise. So yeah, that was really pivotal for me.
Regarding what's going on in the outside world, have you got any sort of practical tips on how people might cope with this thing that's going on?
Oh gosh, don't take it too seriously. You know, it's like we all know. I think deep down, you know, even the most unawakened person knows that the world needs to change. It can't continue on the way it is. There's just too many things wrong, and you know, we're destroying our own habitat, and we have massive suicide rates, and we have young children who are having nervous breakdowns, and it's just tragic. And we all knew that something needed to break, and here it is. So don't take it too seriously. See it as a gift. You know, we have been living in excess for so incredibly long that we know we can live simply. We know that we can simplify everything about our society, our lives, localize our businesses rather than going global and multinational. And, you know, just really relax and see it for what it is. It's a dismantling of control mechanisms, which, you know, living in Australia, the control mechanisms are getting much louder, as things do just before there's a great awakening.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dr. Joe's advice: don't take it so seriously.
Yeah, I think part of my sort of mission, not a mission really, but part of my soul's purpose, for want of a better way of explaining it, is simple, practical steps in the moment to help to reset the balance, you know. And how do you know you're out of balance? Because you feel disturbed, you know. when, there's a phrase I like, and it's from AA teachings, and my whole philosophy for living is based upon the Alcoholics Anonymous program of living, really, and this 12-step program, because that was the thing that helped to save me, my life in the end. And I'm not saying that everybody should live by that, but the principles are spiritual principles. It's basically got nothing to do with drinking. It's got to do with finding your essential self, And one thing I was guided towards was prayer and meditation. But when I hear the words prayer and meditation, the old religious thing comes up to think, oh, hang on, I've been snaffled by a cult here. They're trying to brainwash me. And my brain needed a wash, to say the least, And I've, over the years, got more and more into mindfulness, really. And I teach mindfulness now. All that means is that I sort of show people the scientific aspects of what mindfulness is. And very, very simply, it's how our breathing is intricately and intimately related with the way that our heart works. And if we can get into gentle, slow, deep, relaxed breathing, then our heart works in a much more coherent way. It sends information back to our brains. Our brain waves change. We think in a more expansive way, and we can come up with better quality practices and solutions. It really helps us to choose from our hearts and not from our heads. And so that's what I'm saying to people is, and lightheartedness to me is the key, because levity, which means lightheartedness, is the opposite of gravity. And as you say, I think we've become too grave. We've become too serious. Most people have lost the joy of living. And that's what I found is that sometimes, as Jesus would say, and I'm a great fan of Jesus, I'm not a Christian anymore. I've not labeled myself, but there's a lot of good words that came out of the teachings, apparently. But turn the other cheek to me means stop looking at all the miserable stuff and turn round and work with what works for you. Turn the other cheek in another direction and get a life. There's me paraphrasing some of Jesus's teachings, Have you come across Osho on your journeys at all?
I have, yes.
Right.
Yes.
He, to me, was probably the greatest teacher of all, in my view, because he was what's called a spiritually... Sorry.
No, go on.
I think he's a spiritually incorrect mystic, he called himself, and I can really get to terms with that, So go on, what are you going to say?
No, I can't even remember now. That's completely gone.
Oh, right. Let's have a mindful moment. Right.
But that's the thing, meditation. People think of meditation, oh, I can't sit there and be still and all this sort of thing. And it's sort of like, well, there's meditation in many things. You go for a walk and you can be meditating. For me, doing dishes, I find quite meditative. Whether that's mindfulness or meditation, I don't know, but just the simple mundane things. Once you stop seeing it as a chore and you start seeing it as a moment to be present with yourself, then it completely changes the energy of it. And there's so many of those moments in our days, and when we start to see the beauty in all things, whether it's putting your hands in dirty dishwater or hanging out clothes on the line, there is beauty in everything. And so, yeah, absolutely, it's turning the other cheek so that you see the beautiful things that are coming to present themselves to you.
Yeah, and that's where I'm sort of up to at the moment, is nothing really imbalances me much anymore. I'm sort of more or less shock proof now, only because I've understood that if I'm feeling disturbed, whether consciously or unconsciously, that represents a threat. It's a threat. And under threat, as I say, whether consciously or unconsciously, my body will automatically go into fight or flight. And that's it. That's when the tension comes in. That's when the fists clench, the jaw clenches, the head tenses and everything else. So to me, being tense, whether we can justify it or not, right, is an ego threat. And I know now that if I choose in that moment right, it's not the right decision, generally speaking, that I need to feel the tension, breathe, use the out breath to disengage from the fight or flight response, take a step back, settle down, and think again. Don't get me wrong, if there's a bus coming at me or some sort of tiger trying to kill me, then that's what the fight or flight's there for. But most of the time, I'd look at an email and I'd think, ooh, that means I've got to do that. So everything I did, I watched the television, everything was a threat. So my whole processing, inner processing, was based upon threat detection and defensiveness, and it isn't anymore. And to be honest, Leilani, I mean, most of the time, I really couldn't give a shit about anything, because there's a deep sense in me that it's all right, son. Just look back how you've progressed. You're going on okay. Just keep doing what you're doing.
And you do get those moments when you lose sight of that. And I had one quite recently where, you know, I thought I was following the right path. I thought I was doing the right things. And then it became clear to me I wasn't. And if I continued on the path that I was on, then I wouldn't be true to myself. I wasn't being authentic in that. And I got really upset with myself because I felt that I'd blindsided myself. And I am often the last person to see my own unconscious actions. And it's always a shock when I discover it. And I can be really, really harsh on myself. So yeah, it's a process. It's a process bringing yourself back into that center, going, it's okay. It's okay to forgive yourself. You know, we all screw up. We all, you know, go on, veer off on the wrong path, or think we're doing the right thing, and it turns out that, oh no, that's not the right way to go. And yeah, just really to come back to that place of forgiveness and go, okay, reset. Where do we go now? Where do we go from here? And it's sort of like, right, start again, day one.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you. I do it one moment at a time, really, you know, because I'm always tuned in. It's almost my left ear is transplanted onto my heart. And I'm always going with this. Am I flowing? Am I flowing? Am I flowing? Oh, hang on, I've stopped flowing. What's that about? Sit for a while, see what it is, take an action if an action needs to be taken, and carry on, you know. So my whole life was, my best was never good enough. And you know what? It is today. And every single moment, my intention at the start of the day is to do the best that I can, try to be kind to myself and to others, try to be considerate, you know, to myself and others, and just try and stay in some sort of balanced state, you know. And to me, it's not all about internal stuff, because there is an external reality there, and I know that it's a projection of the past and all that sort of business. However, in a 3D world, we still have to live and to deal with that projection, you know. So to me, it's what's called a both and approach, you know, because there's an interior, and there's an exterior, and the balance point to me is somewhere between the middle of those two. So there's, if you like, a horizontal and a vertical dimension to this. And to be balanced in 0 point is to be sitting in the middle of it, waiting for the next move to come from spirit, if you like. I should record this. It sounded quite good. I'll have to go back and listen to what I've just said then.
Oh, lucky it'll be on a replay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with a girlfriend earlier today, and I was saying, you know, I used to have this mindset that I couldn't come out and I couldn't be the authentic me that I have worked so hard to be in the world, because I still have things that aren't right. You know, I've still got things in my daily life that cause me pain, and things that aren't quite operating the way they would in my perfect little bubble. And I thought, this old part of my framework thought that I couldn't come out and be all the things that I wanted to be if that wasn't fixed. Now I've come to the realization, only really in the past 6 months or so, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. No one's going to have all their ducks in a row. No one's going to have it all figured out. You know, we got to have things that are still challenging us in life. And they're the things that keep us growing, keep us flowing, keep us moving. And yeah, it's just so abundantly clear now that I've been pulling my feet out from under me for so long, and it's just time to fly. Time to fly. Be done with all of that. None of that really matters. All that matters is that I'm taking a step each day, taking a new breath, a new step, and moving towards more fulfillment and joy in my own inner being.
Yeah, I agree totally. I'm all I want to do is improve every day and be more and more free, you know. And you know, we talk about 0 point. There's a phrase that's used a lot these days, 0 pointing, you know. And to me, 0 pointing is basically just being totally comfortable within yourself and being happy with that and not judging yourself. That inner critic has plagued me all of my life. It used to be so bad that even if I got that was why I drank so much, to try and shut that voice up, because, you know, and I used to run at the wall, and this is true, I used to run at the wall or a door and try and smash my head against it because I couldn't stop these critical thoughts going on, you know. And, you know, it took me to a terrible place where I tried to do myself in because I just needed some escape or oblivion from it, you know. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but the thing is, as you say, I think that there's always got to be a single point of disturbance as well, because I think that that's what you used to call the evolutionary impulse to grow and to evolve. So, you know, to be completely free of that stimulating sort of disturbance probably isn't the way forward, you know. There used to be a thing that the guru and the pandit, that was Ken Wilber, and what was the other fella's name? Andrew Cohen, you know, and they used to talk about being and becoming. And I understand that now, is because I don't know who I will be tomorrow. I can only say, this is where I'm at now. This is what I feel. And if you like, believe, right? But tomorrow it may all change, you know. So I sort of give myself a break now and just try and do the best that I can one day at a time. And then when I wake up in the morning with a clean sheet, start again, you know. You know, the death, just to go back, the death doula things come back in as well, to go back to Osho. You know, he called himself a spiritual midwife, and I sort of see myself in the same sort of way, is that I can see people, and as you say before, you know, people who are not awake, and I don't want to get into terms, but it's useful to describe it, that I can see people who are sort of on the edge and just about to pop their heads up out of the pothole. Like you said, I think the job is, you know, for someone who's just slightly further along, is to put your hand down, hoik them up, kick them up the bottom and say, right, off you go then. This is what it's all about, you know. So do you see yourself in the same sort of way, or?
Yeah. Yes and no. For me, yeah, I don't even know where I am in that at the moment. Yeah, I've got nothing. Sorry.
That's all right. No. I see, and that's the thing, is I'm all right now, because sometimes I'll say I've got no idea where it was going. I can't even remember what I was saying, you know. Somebody might say to you, that's because you're being blocked by spirits, and what, you know, whatever. You know. My job is, I can see that my job is, I am worked by the spirit of the Heyoka, which was basically a joker, you know. And my job is to take the piss out of people, right? Not to offend them, but just to try and bring a little chuckle into their life, which temporarily disconnects them from their egomania, which lets the light come in, you know. And I see it's to disarm them in some sort of a way, you know, by punching them with love. That's what I feel, you know, because most of the time, people who know me know how I operate in a way, you know. People who don't know me think I'm horrible, and how can he possibly say those terrible things? But it's always meant with love. It's never meant to offend anybody. But don't get me wrong, Leilani, in the old days when I was on the drink, I would use my mouth to cut people down from a distance, because I've always been able to spot imperfections in others while I thought I was perfect myself. And I can see that clearly now. I was a horrible bastard, right? And sometimes I can feel that lurking with me again, especially when I'm hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. It's back, seeking a victim because I feel bad. No, but I'm onto it today. I'm onto it. I'm definitely not free of it. I'm onto it. What about you?
Yeah. And I think it's part of, you know, recognizing who you are and not denying that, allowing it to be, but not be in control and not be out of control. To have a container that all of your facets, all of your aspects can be expressed in the healthiest of ways. And yeah, very important not to deny those more shadowy aspects of yourself, because they've had a role. They have a role, and when they're in balance with your whole self, with yourself, they can be very constructive.
Yeah, and as you say, to me again, it's about balance, you know. And what's coming to mind now is the return of the sacred feminine. You know, I'm sort of partly not in agreement with that. I know what they're going on about, right? And I think people, like I did, people misunderstand it to say that some sort of female is going to come in, take over, and you know, and all that. To me, masculine and feminine are different than male and female, obviously. You know, and I think I got, you know, because I think that we have a masculine and a feminine aspect, a yin and a yang in every human being, you know, and it's that what's happening to me in a neuroscientific way. There's a nerve called the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve is feminine. And it's, to me, that is the great nurturer. It's the great nurturer. And sometimes mums, in my opinion, they have to sort of not teach their children lessons, hard lessons, but they have to guide them in some hard stuff sometimes, you know. So the mum has to come up, and it seems like in a masculine way. But I really do feel from my neuroscience work that definitely we need to rest and digest a lot more, because we've been on fight or flight for a long time. And the fight or flight is basically the masculine side of the human nature, you know. So I do see, I don't know whether, you know, so to me, it's about a balance and a cooperation between the masculine and the feminine components in everybody. You know, and and to me, that's the mystical union and the sacred marriage that's been talked about in ancient scriptures for a long time, that it happens within the individual. And if you're fortunate enough to have a relationship that's happening externally as well, well, to me, you know, you've got it made. But you don't need anybody, in my view, you don't need anybody outside of yourself to achieve this perfect balance within you. I don't know whether you've got any, what you can add to that at all.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because I found myself for the past couple of years in very much exercising my masculine. I had been quite masculine dominant in the way that I was career oriented and drove myself, and I was all about work. I knew there was another side, definitely had my more feminine side, which was exploring, you know, more the transpersonal counselling and the empathetic side of myself. But yeah, it was very much in a masculine environment. And it was being in that environment that allowed me to bring more of my feminine side up, to balance that masculine feminine within me. And that's been a really, really interesting journey. Actually, that career side of me only ended in July. So that's what's given me the opportunity and the space to open up and really embrace more of that feminine side of myself, because I've managed to remove myself from that masculine dominant environment, which very much pulled me out of balance. So yeah, very, very prominent balancing of the masculine and feminine. And I tend to take myself to my outer limits, to my extremes before I snap back in and find that balance. So yeah, I found myself teetering on the edge. Yeah, and it's taken a couple of months, to really come back into alignment, to a place where I can now move forward from that balanced perspective.
I think what I've found out about myself is that most of my life I've been more feminine than masculine internally now, because yeah, it is an inside job, I think. And most of the time that I've been looking externally for the answers, but the answers are through feeling. I think that you can get a deeper sense once you sort of get courageous enough to take your head off, turn it the other way around and look inwards, you know. And I think that's what I was afraid of all the time. I knew that the problem was me, but I didn't know that the solution was me as well. But once I went through this program of recovery, if you like, I realized that I'm the problem and the solution all in one, really. And I because of my more feminine aspects, I call myself gay from the waist up, you know what I mean? Because physically, right, I work like a fella, right? But, you know, emotionally, I was much more feminine and very, very emotionally sensitive, you know. And so that emotional sensitivity led me to become a massive and gross people pleaser. I find it very, very difficult to say no to people. And I would take on board other people's problems, and I would try and fix everybody, you know, and forgot myself in the process. And now that's turned completely now. I can sort of decide whether I want to help somebody, but I've also developed the courage now to say, no, I'm sorry, I'm too busy at the moment. I'll have to say no to that, you know. And so that people pleaser thing was very powerful. And I was driven most of my life and my decisions. What will they think of me if I say no? You know, so again, it was all about me. I'm sort of getting a bit lost here, but what I've realized is my sponsor said to me, you know, you help a lot of people. He said, but you're probably, I felt like killing him when he said it. He said, you're probably one of the most selfish people I've ever met in my life, you know. And I wanted to stab him in the throat, right? But he said, let me explain. He said, selfishness, I hated this, selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of all our problems. And my head then, to justify it, my head would immediately, yes, but look, I help so many people. He said, Joe, you only do that for your own benefit. He said, have you ever helped anybody and they haven't said thank you? And I said, yeah. And he said, and how do you feel about that? Well, I want to kill them. He said, so it's not about helping others, Joe, is it? You're looking for praise just to say what a saint you are. And I didn't get it immediately, but I remember leaving his house and I was going back on the bus thinking, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about, him, you know. But over time, I realized that all my actions were about me and looking for praise, you know. And once I saw that, that started to release me completely, you know, that I'm doing it not for you, I'm doing it for me, you know. And that's why it's helped me to change, you know. So let's just sit here now and see what comes up next. I think we've touched on some, yeah, it's about having fun. How are you going to enjoy yourself and have fun for the rest of the day?
For the rest of the day, I'm probably going to go to bed and go to sleep.
Right, is it, what time is it over there now? About 10 o'clock, is it?
No, 9 p.m.
Oh, 9 p.m.
9 p.m. I'm an early riser. I need to see the sunrise every morning, or else my day doesn't feel like it started well. So I'm always up early.
Yeah, I'm the same. Normally absolutely exhausted by 9:30 at night. Go to bed, don't have any problems sleeping now, put my head on the pillow, kaboom, I'm gone. But I wake up about 4:30, 5 o'clock every morning, you know. And when it's summer, I go out and have a run at that time, you know, because I'm fortunate that we're by a country park and stuff like that, you know, and not far from the beach. So I'm lucky in that regard. But I also found that running and physical activity, I think that's become important to me. And I think, you know, mindful breathing and becoming aware of your breathing, but also mindful movements as well, as becoming a big part of my life, you know. And I do a lot of running, and it's in that plodding. I'm not fast or anything like that. I'm just sort of in the middle, you know, the middle way Joe, really. In that plodding, when I synchronize my breathing, it's almost like my head opens up and all sorts of new inspiration or downloads come in, you know. So I tend to run long distances, but I do it for two reasons. It's just to keep myself going physically, and I'm not doing too bad, you know. I'm 65 years of age. My blood pressure is perfectly normal. My blood sugar's normal. I'm a bit overweight, but you know what? I'm doing okay, you know. But from a mind point of view and psychological, I've never felt better in my life. I feel okay with myself. You know, there's always room for improvement. What about you? Do you? I like outdoor swimming as well. You know, wild water swimming, but it's getting a bit cold here now. But normally I'll swim a couple of miles and then I'll go for a bit of a jog. And at the end of that, I feel great. You know, do you participate in any physical activities?
Not a lot recently. No, just a walk down by the lake is probably enough for me at the moment. I do love being in the ocean, but I live about 3 hours from the ocean, so I don't get there very often. But it was always so important to me, and I miss that salt water, that salty air, and I know the minerals in it just bring me to life and make me glow. So I think I'm well and truly due for a beach holiday. But it's coming into summer now in Australia, so I'll probably get that soon. But yeah, it is. I do tend to neglect my own physical activity a little bit. Like this morning, I got up and I was like, I've got to do something. So I cleaned the house, and that was my physical activity for the day. Yeah, yeah. I'm not doing a lot at the moment. I'm not doing a lot. I'm probably going more in than going out and doing that physical aspect. And it's been raining here for a couple of days, so I don't even want to walk outside my front door.
No, I'd be I'd be knackered without. I'd be lost without doing me, because it's almost like my chest opens up as well, and I can blow all the crap off my chest. You know, because I like the phrase: if there's something playing on your mind, you got to get it off your chest. You know, and so to me, running and swimming does that for me, and it's that out breath again. You know, there's scientific evidence to show that the out breath is the disconnecting, emotionally disconnecting breath and stuff. You know, I read the book once. You know, it's about souls, different souls are programmed to work best in different environments, you know, and they say that some people, you know, their sort of resonance geographical environment might be deep forest, you know, and the woods and leaf mold and all that sort of stuff. That's where their soul resonates and works best. Mine is sea and sand and links, golf links, you know. I love that wispy green grass and the lynx grass and stuff, because as soon as I see the sea or the ocean, I can feel my heart expand and open up, you know. So I'm, you know, I am fortunate, and I feel very, very grateful that where we're situated presently is you know, is like that. So there we are, Leilani. I mean, we're coming up to time now. I'm in the middle of doing tutorials. You know, I've sort of snuck this in the middle of my professional job. So I'll be going back in half an hour to doing proper tutorials and talking like in those big words that I don't fully understand. but thanks very much. It's lovely to meet you, and you know, maybe we can do this somewhere down the line again and see what's changed over time and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm sure many things will have changed. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity of being able to come on here and talk to you. I really appreciate it. It's been a beautiful time.
Thanks very much. Lovely to see you, and thanks everybody for watching, and keep in touch, and lots of love.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.